So I'm here. Welcome to yet another fucking podcast. I'm here with Joe Keich, is it? Or
Yeah, Joe Keich. It's a
Good.
German name, so it's Keich technically, but please, Joe Keich. That's what I tell everybody.
Sweet, Joe Keich. So I would love to maybe hear just briefly what you do in the world, and maybe something you'd like us to know about you as a person, rather than a public figure.
What I do. So I'm an intimacy and relationship coach. Also, by the way, I would say thanks for having me on. I'm glad that we get to connect here around this topic and these topics.
Absolutely.
I'm an intimacy and relationship coach, and my focus is on helping people, my clients, whether I'm working with men, women, or couples, deepen so intimately with themselves that they discover that intimacy is a way of life and it becomes natural to them, right? So rather than, we remove the emotional and limiting beliefs and emotions, we help us access parts of ourselves that help us deepen naturally. Really fun place to explore. Something I'd love people to know about me. I have a vast and expansive wealth of knowledge around things that I have only begun to share around connection, depth, sexuality, and it's just waiting there to come out. And I get super excited about it. I get really excited about it.
So I got this. I read recently somewhere, I was looking at some of your posts, and I got this sense that you're someone, when you get interested by a topic, you go for it, absolutely. I imagine you've got all the books, and you deep researcher. Is that kind of true?
It's, brother, there's such a wide range of things that I've studied over the course of the last 20 years essentially, but the last 10 years especially. So many topics, and I say a school of thought in terms of conscious relating or sacred sexuality or personal development or consciousness, right? So many different trains of thought that schools of thought that allow us to expand, allow us to open, allow us to connect and deepen, and all of them influence who we are. At the core, I talk about sacred sexuality, and people see this as more often than not, even if they are in conscious relating fields, as a little bit of a taboo. So even if they are in conscious relating, there's resistances they have to open, right? To me, I explored all those avenues, so that to me, opening was just ooh, this is fun. Let's open here, right? How can we make more people open here? So definitely a lot of areas I've dove into, and for sure a lot of depth of study.
A deep desire for opening, but then also not just your opening, other people's openings as well.
My mission since I can remember has been, let's explore how my opening can open other people.
I love that. Yeah, I feel a lot of resonance with that too. Yeah. I mean, I use the word evolve for myself personally, but it's the same. It's the same kind of experience, but I can feel the kind of the unique expressions that we each hold around that, which to me brings me a lot of excitement too.
It's evolutionary for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason we connected was I commented on a post of yours around sex transmutation. Yeah. And I remember reading that. I can't remember the content, but that's okay, because you're going to refresh my memory. But I remember reading that, and I was just oh fuck, I have to talk to this guy. And by the way, you can swear, you can you can go anywhere in this space. You're free. And I was just I want to talk to you. I've really I felt impacted by reading that, and I was I want more. So that's why I reached out, and yeah, sex transmutation. Let's start there.
Cool. Yeah. And by the way, I'm super glad that you did. We're compelled to reach out. So sex transmutation, that's been as a, in that post, I'll refresh you a little bit on that post and and then kind of explore a little bit. So the sex transmutation in the two modes of education that I found in this, or through reading Think and Grow Rich. Maybe you know the book Napoleon Hill. There's actually, I believe it's an entire chapter referred to sex transmutation and how men can leverage their own sexual energy for productivity, for just putting it into other locations so that they can do something much greater, with it than just ejaculate, right? The other side, and like that, my mind was like, when I read that piece, I was like, there is something here. Everybody's after the money, everybody's after the financial growth and the career success and all these other things. I'm like, what's this sex transmutation stuff? So love that piece of the book, but then I've also found in other places, authors like Mantak Chia, well-known, but interestingly enough, supposedly not as valuable a resource. Like he's got an entire book on how to, go into multiple orgasm, which at the root, really, you can't get into multiple orgasm without understanding how to transmute your own sexual energy, because you have to be able to go extended amounts of time without masturbating, without ejaculating, without having, well, you can have intercourse and whatever, but you can't ejaculate. So, we talk about this, and I don't want to dive too much into it because I think it would get off track with the value of it. But in Chinese, they refer to the Jing as your essential essence energy, right? So for men, the more men ejaculate, the less of it they have. So supposedly we have a reserve of male sexual energy. And over the course of our life, we only have so much, right? Here's this container of male sexual energy. The more we ejaculate, the more that goes down until we reach, 40s, 50s, and so on, that we're at a very limited amount, right? And so the more we expend through ejaculation, the less we have available. So all theories, all potential woo-woo aside, my personal experience with sex transmutation is that I've been able to leverage just mastering my own sexual impulses over the course of years. And it's taken me a long time to do this, long time, because I'm sure, as you know, the male sexual impulse to have sex and to fuck is very, very strong.
Yeah.
Right? Super strong. So it's why we have difficulty with porn. It's why sex addiction is a real thing. So it took me a long time, I was never a sex addict. I was never a porn addict, but I always had that impulse. Like, what do I do with this thing? It's consuming. It's like, okay, I'm going to go 1 week. 5 days later, fuck. And it was years. It took me years practice. Like, okay, try again, fail, try again, fail. By the time I got to be able to just abstain for 1 month, I was like, oh my God, thank you. That's one step in the process. But then it took me many years after that to really harness that sexual energy. And for me, it was really, really strong. I can't speak for other men. I imagine some men have it easier than others. For me, it was so strong that it took me a long time to master this. So what I discovered through just abstinence alone was the power that I was able to have. It increased exponentially. Just source power within my body, my presence alone, increased exponentially when I was able to go 3-6 months without ejaculating whatsoever. So I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Let's see much longer we can go. Go ahead, what's up?
Yeah, well, I remember now the post and what struck me, and I'm totally on board with you with the non-ejaculation thing and with the jing and the reserve and the essence. I read Multi-Orgasmic Man, I think, when I was 21, 15, 16, 17 years ago or something like that. And it's been my own kind of journey as well. I totally get that. And I want to keep going on that, but I also want to highlight the other thing that you've kind of only touched on a little bit right now, but this is what really jumped out at me in your post, that I was like, smacked by. I remember now. I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And that's being really precise with sexual energy as a man. It's like that urge to fuck, that leaky way where I might kind of try and come onto a woman or manipulate a woman into trying to get my sexual needs met. But there's not a full alignment in that. So all of these kind of like ways in which my sexual energy is like taking up a lot of my time and a lot of my energy, and it's being out in the world. How do I get this thing? How do I get this itch scratched in some way or another? Either I'm doing it on my own, or I'm trying to find someone, or I'm spending a lot of time trying to pursue women in different senses that I'm actually not super invested in a way of creating some kind of deep field of intimacy and exploring sexuality. So
Right.
so I'm hearing these, like there's two pieces. One is the kind of the physical aspect of it, and the other is the actual kind of the energetic aspect of it that happens in our relating with women, or our relating with our impulse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting how I came upon that piece, because I was doing my own like exploration of how to harness the sexual energy that is so big in me. And then I was also going through conscious relating and sacred sexuality workshops, and reading all sorts of different books around those topics. And what I learned and where my exploration took me, part of where I came from, and I'll just say this briefly, like part of where I came from was back as a child. I had very disruptive, very broken childhood. Parents, major dysfunction. Stepfather was alcoholic, abusive, and a porn addict. Mother was, deeply narcissistic. And anyway, like to me, it was like I saw that and I was like, I want to have love. How do I have love? Right? How does relationship work? How does this malfunction of a thing that I see actually function properly? So from that, I was like, I'm going through all this sexuality exploration and all this conscious relating and all this other stuff. And the end result of my own little boy, that had that experience was I found the end result was leading me to, through all of this, to like, how do I contain myself so well? That sexual energy that is so easy in a relationship where you're like, I love this woman is amazing to me. And then your mind goes over to like, holy shit, she's fucking hot, like, damn, that woman has a nice ass, So like, masculine mind wants to go those places, like, but it only goes those places when you have not fully harnessed your sexual energy, and you have not practiced conscious relating intentionally. So there's like kind of an evolution to it, right? So you're honing in this harnessed sexual energy. Okay, now I got this harnessed sexual energy. Okay, what do I do with it? Okay, I got this 6 months down. I'm like, okay, Joe, what do I do with this? Right? So that's where the practice comes in. That's where the conscious, intentional practice comes in, where I got all sorts of feedback over the course of time where like women could feel what I was doing. I'm like, you could feel that? So it got me very aware of where my mind was, and how to, in realizing every time my mind would drift off and she could feel it, even if she wasn't present, my mind was like, okay, if a woman is here and I love that woman, she'd be able to feel that. Tension comes back to here. So I kept practicing. I was like, okay, how do I bring this back? The more I did it, the more it was like, the more my attention became so precise that I, coupled with my harnessing of the sexual energy, that practice, now it's like my attention is so much on a woman, she can feel it. And she's like, thank you. You have my attention, So, there's more to it but this, there's lots of other pieces.
Well, I just love hearing that. Like I noticed when you started talking about that, like my whole chest and body relaxed, and I was just like, oh, and I sunk into my belly. I'm like, just the rightness, like it just felt really right in my own system of like that kind of the relationship between the harnessing of the sexual energy. Okay, I can harness my sexual energy. I can have multiple orgasms. I can, transmute it in my own body, but then coupled it with that, what do I do with it? That I actually stay contained and I focus it only where I want to focus it, where it's appropriate to focus it in the conscious choices. And then I keep it there. It's like, It's beautiful, you know, and it feels right as in my own sense of self as a man. It just feels so right. Like that's what I do. And then I take that into my business, or I take that into whatever I'm doing in my life.
Yes, exactly. And it's beautiful when I do that. You know, like when I hop on a call with one of my coaching clients and we get to that fun point where it's like, okay, your woman's pissed because your attention's not on her, right? Your woman's pissed because your attention's not on her and you're being leaky. So, you know, in one client recently, I said, okay, so here's your exercise for this week. Everywhere you go, everything you do, career, woman, grocery shopping, phone, everywhere you go, your attention is here. Your woman's in front of you, this is where your attention is. You're doing business, this is where your attention is. If your attention goes anywhere else, you're out of practice. So it's just a really intentional practice of where you're letting your attention go.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just looking for the words to add to that. I don't know other than to say, like, if as a man, it feels right. It feels like that's kind of in that design, that typology of like, okay, I'm a man, I've become a man, I've been born into this man's body with a kind of a masculine drive. Part of that design, part of my design, then I have other designs, you know, my human design, my astrology and everything that kind of shapes me. But that kind of fundamental design of being a man, a masculine man in a man's body, is that the way that I interact with the world is what I do with my attention, and how my attention penetrates the world, or not necessarily always penetrates. Sometimes it might draw the world towards me or open it, but that's the way I operate. I'm designed to operate in this particular way. And if I align with it, then the world becomes easier to navigate.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but you know, like, have you ever heard the phrase like "fucked open to God"? Have you heard David Day use that phrase?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I can't imagine, like, in my mind, when I hear "fucked open to God," I imagine like every man on this planet going like, "That's my purpose," right?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's my mind's going like, I know every single man hears that and goes, even if they don't say it, I know they feel that.
Yeah.
So when I talk about this, like, here's where your attention is. Here's how you've harnessed this sexual energy and how you're directing it. That is the most precise form of fucking anything open to God. And for anybody listening here going like woo-woo stuff, like I'm telling you, it may sound woo-woo, but this is really legit stuff. Feeling the presence of a man that can do that, huge.
Yeah. And I love the word that you put in there as well. Anything, not just woman, anything, life, you know, business, career, whatever it is that we're doing.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to throw this is the fun piece for me. It's like you got all this like it's intimately linked to a man feeling as though he has his purpose, right? So here's one of the tricky things that and I love David Data's work for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that he's a little bit off in clarifying purpose, right? So he would say that in order to find what your purpose is, you know, like you could go away and meditate for days or whatever, right? To me, my feeling, and all due respect to the man, love his work, my feeling is that if you are so fully present in this moment that you are engaged with, no matter what you are doing, this is your purpose. And if you can harness that sexual energy, where your attention is right here, that moment is your purpose. So while you might have a much greater thing that you're out, like you've got a much greater mission, absolutely, that is your greater purpose. You're being with this woman, you're cultivating this conscious relationship, that is part of your purpose. But if you get distracted by saying, oh, but I got to do this bigger thing, this other thing, and this woman and this career, then your attention is not here. And so you're missing right now is presently your purpose. So when you are able to like tie those two things together, you feel like your purpose is like right now, you're always doing it.
I love that. It's like you're describing the mechanics of purpose as a verb rather than a noun. So purpose is a way of being. It's a thing that I'm enacting, and purpose is enacted by you've articulated basically two fundamental things that lead to the mechanics of purpose. One is mastering sexual energy at a kind of, we could almost say a biological level, even though that biology studies probably aren't yet able to describe it, but I bet you they could. If we were to put our scientific studies towards, we could actually map blood flow and everything like that actually relates to what happens when I contain my sexual energy, and then what happens at the hormone. I'm absolutely sure we will find biological correlates, and it is a biological and nervous system expression. So that's one piece. And then the other piece is the refinement of attention. And so kind of putting those two together enacts a living sense of purpose. A purpose is a verb. I am purpose.
I'm living embodiment of purpose instead of it being separate from us. Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And then so I become this living embodiment of purpose. I have my sexual energy contained, and I have it in a way that I'm able to move it through my body or whatever and build it up, and I've got my practice, and I'm abstinent from this excessive ejaculation or ejaculation at all, depending on kind of age and what scale we're at. I know that changes and I noticed myself, you're talking as well, as I approach 40, I can feel my Jing reserves are down. I've got less than I did when I was 20. It's very apparent, and I have to be way more intentional with it, because the toll it takes on me is huge, and it takes me a lot longer to recover from that loss. So I have to actively keep it topped up and contain it. So I've started to get that down, and I've started to become precise with my attention. Now, how does woman respond, and how does the world respond, and how do I, what is this? I've got some idea, and so maybe I'll ask the question and put my idea out, and then you can kind of jam back onto that. So it's like, what do I do with that? Or what does it mean to do something with that? What is its purpose? And so one way I've been thinking, and you may have a different, I don't have a solidified structure of thought around this. So if you have something different, I'm totally open to that.
Sure.
But I think of, as a man, there's this kind of penetrative, precise, kind of conscious, present attention, very pointed. We've got this sense of I'm the thing that fucks open to God. Right. And then woman is this chaotic, intuitive, mysterious phenomena that's arising. And so I think of it it's almost like my attention and presence as a man is to provide clarity, sense making, and a navigation through that mystery. And so when I couple with a woman, it's like we get on board and we go into this mystery that kind of is generated between us, and she feeds the mystery. And I'm like, okay, I'm steering the ship, but it's doesn't exist without her input.
This is a good topic, brother. This is a good topic. And this is actually one that I explored a lot over the course of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
A lot.
Nice.
So there's this, when we go into sacred relationship, sacred sexuality, there's this idea that a lot of people get lost in, that there is a masculine being and there's a feminine being. Masculine being leads, feminine being follows, is the flow, whatever, right? So we've got all these definitions of what an individual is supposed to be. In real relationships, and I mean real as in what currently exists in modern society, with the exception of probably very few places where you can really have that sort of dynamic where a man is fully, or man or woman, whatever, one body is fully in their masculine and the other fully in their feminine and devoted to those practices. We're talking about truly sacred, this is how we're living life, and we're going to go somewhere that we can ensure that it happens. There are few places you're going to be able to have that happen. Very few. And you have to be so incredibly intentional about it that probably the rest of your life in modern sort of living can't happen, because those things will influence and basically create sort of dysfunction that won't allow it to exist. Most people are going to be in situations where they have a blend of masculine and feminine. So you're not just a masculine body or a feminine body, you are a blend of both. And how those two interact and how you manage to, engage one another, and say for example, this is, I'd say the most common one that I get. I love this topic. So the most common one that I get is that men don't know how to fully drop into their emotional expressiveness, tune into it, to feel it, to own it, to express from that place, to really embody that emotional energetic based embodiment, right? Instead of stillness, right? So men have difficulty getting there. They have difficulty accessing it. They have difficulty living it. They've been conditioned to like, oh, you're weak if you have an emotion. Don't cry. What are you doing? Get over it. Suck it up, right? So men have difficulty getting into that place. So because of that, what ends up happening is when they get into relationship and they need to be more expressive, to open their partner in a different way, or to open what is the entity of partnership more and expand it more, their constriction around that prevents it from opening, right? Now on the woman's side, interestingly enough, it's similar, right? So she is really, even though the man is at his core, he's got this heart center that is his emotion, his emotional expression, and he can let it out because more than likely he's a man that's masculine identified more than he is feminine identified, but he's got feminine within him, and it's got to be let out. He's got to access it. A woman is looking for this, and I'm going to do my best to kind of tie this in because it get complicated, and I don't want to get too lost in it, but
it's all right.
A man's heart center is his access to the depth of his feminine partner. That is his access. He thinks that, he gets too lost in his head to understand that she's not going to open as fully sexually with him as she can if she cannot feel heart center connected to her. It's not going to happen. He's going to think it's happening, but it's not. So that's his access. His opening, expanding opens a relationship. It opens her more. On the other side, the tricky thing is that not only are women, and especially in westernized cultures where women have a tendency to kind of suppress their own emotional expression as well, they still have it in more abundance than men, right? So they've got greater access to that. Men have greater access to the stillness and the presence. But you flip this around, and one of the reasons that men have so much difficulty accessing their emotions is that they don't understand, and women don't tend to understand, that women also don't know how to hold the masculine pole very well for him to feel. So when he ends up getting to that place where he needs to open more fully for her, she doesn't know how to tune in with precision to his heart. So he ends up having this restriction, but he's unconscious to his restriction. The access that he ends up getting is either through being led through it with a professional, which is what I do, or he is guided by his partner, but very seldom do women know how to hold that space. It's got to be so incredibly precise, because for a man to open his heart, it's like a sacred thing to him, right? Granted, a woman's sexuality is probably, and I would say, like I wrote a post around, the way, what is it? To access to a man's heart is through his sex. Access to a woman's sex is through her heart, right? So a woman has more of a capacity to be open-hearted, to be more flowing, more present with her heart feelings, right? Less open with her sex. A man is the reverse. Much more open with his sex, more closed with his heart. So on his side, its heart is sacred. So to penetrate that heart with a precise love energy, especially from a woman that is so intimately close to this man, it's a scary thing, right? So this man is like, oh, I'm feeling these feels. I'm not sure if she can hold when I actually get there, So a woman needs to be able to tune in precisely with holding that masculine pole, but not so much that she takes the masculine pole, only so much that she allows him to feel to open so that the expansion between them can happen. And as soon as she feels that expansion, she lets him take the masculine pole, because otherwise it's going to feel like an emasculation to him. And she's going to go wondering, like, why is he being so weak? Like, why am I stronger than him? And she's going to get lost in this masculine bullshit, right? So she's got to be able to hold the space only so long that he can feel, drop back, let him find the masculine pole, and suddenly she goes back into her feminine, and then we have this glorious connection.
It's beautiful. I can feel the level of subtle nuance essential here. It's so subtle and so, like, yeah, precise. You know, you use the word precision a bunch of times, and I can feel it in your body. I'm like in my body as you're describing it. I'm like kind of taking on kind of the imagination of what that experience would be like, and I can feel that sense of like that moment, like of that open heart moment. It's like it's an explosion. The sense of me as a man is going to disintegrate, maybe only for a moment, but it's like it's a fucking explosion, and I don't know. I'm not gonna have any sense of who I am for a moment. And so she needs to be there. And if she's not going to be there, I cannot do that. I cannot explode in that way into that sense. And then I hear that explosion happens. I'm here. And then it's like, okay, now I'm back in the masculine, but now we're bigger between us.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's got to be able to hold his heart really well.
Yeah.
She's got to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I hear the sacredness around that. Like I can feel it when you're saying it, of like, there is no way I am going to do that unless I can really, really feel that a woman is going to feel that without dropping me, you know, whoa, too much, drop that, without emasculating me, like get that away from me, without making it about herself, like, oh, you know, I'm hurt, like taking it back to herself. She can't do any of, she can't do any of those things in order for me to go there, you know. And if there's even a whiff that she made as a man, there's no chance. And I'm quite a sensitive man, so you get an even less sensitive man, not even close, that we're going to go there.
Yeah.
And I can also sense, like, and I'm glad you articulated this, because I've never thought of this before, and it's like, I love it. You're blowing my mind open a bit more.
Good.
Yeah, totally. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Yeah. And I can feel how much woman is yearning for this experience from man.
Yes.
They want this. I want to feel a man's heart.
Yes.
But then the inability to take responsibility for what it's going to take to truly feel a man's heart. That's and the wound in woman that's going to prevent her from doing that. The wound in woman that if I really take that for a moment, what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. So there was, you know, like I felt like I you know, I stumbled on an extraordinary discovery when I learned these pieces, because they're not being taught anywhere. Like,
no, I've never heard this, but it makes sense. It's like there's hints of it, there's teasers of it, but nothing that's been articulated properly. Yeah.
Right. So like there are a lot of different places that I've pulled, like I said, I pulled together resources and understanding, but this is Joe's like discovery here.
Yeah, beautiful.
So what you know, there aren't, like, you can't just go out and be like, oh, Joe said this thing, let me find the book on it, like, you know, or who's teaching this? Nope, it's not happening. So what's really gorgeous, like, you know, like, yes, I've explained all this to you, and it's a really beautiful thing, and what's really amazing, this is the kicker, brother, this is the kicker, right? What's really amazing about this is that men who think that they're masculine are not as masculine as they think they are until they go through this portal of opening their hearts to their feminine partner. They are not. They're not as grounded as they think they are. They cannot hold the space they think they can until they go through this. And they think they have, like, they learn all these tools to be really great lovers, to kind of know all this stuff about sacred sexuality, tantra, and, you know, like a multiple organ. Great, I'm glad, you know, good for you. You're not opening your woman as much as you think you are. There's more, and it's through this pathway. And what's really beautiful about it is that all these men have this tendency to be like, well, how can I, you know, like, how can I succeed with woman? How can I really make her wet? How can I really open her up? How can I light her up? Because the more I light her up, the more I feel like a man, right? The way that you light her up the most has nothing to do with practice of your sexual whatever. It has to do with your opening your damn heart, so that she opens her sex through your heart being open. Now you're a walking orgasm to women.
I like that you were just pointing it right at my heart when you were saying that. I could feel it. I'm like, oh, I'm getting poked here. It's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of like taking that in for a moment.
Yeah, it's a great topic, brother. I'm glad you brought it up.
Mm.
Great topic.
Mm. And so we've now taken this like vehicle a bit further. So we've got this, my men's practice is to like contain my energy, you know, work with my sexual energy. Then I come into conscious relating and I learn to open my heart. Woman's work I hear on the other side. Well, actually, maybe I know that we can't fully speak for that part, but maybe let's touch on that. So part of that is, how could she hold a man in his opening heart? What would be her way to develop that? How does she develop that ability?
Yeah. That is a great question. Now, I have, this is a challenging area. It's really challenging, not because it's difficult to teach. It's challenging because most women have a kind of a broken identity with what their own masculine is. Some of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot of dysfunction in masculinity throughout the world. That's why we have all this, this ridiculous talk about what is, toxic masculinity and all that, right? So there's confusion about who am I as a man? What is masculinity, right? So some people understand better through embodiment and what the work they do. But there's a lot of dysfunction. A lot of men don't know how to harness their sexual energy, and I penetrate most women around them. Women feel that, right? So they have a tendency to close because they get so much damn attention, right, from men. On top of that, the dysfunction of men just having, being so lost to they don't have purpose. They are easily addicted to things. They don't know how to connect with other men to build up, to be challenged, to grow as a man in your own masculinity. That's how it happens. You sharpen against other men. But you have to be able to handle that. So most men are like, oh, don't talk to me that way. You're an asshole. Like, no, man, this brother is challenging you to become a better man, even if he is being an asshole. Guess what? That's your opportunity to grow and to hold better space than he did. That's your initiation. That's your challenge. That's your growth. Right? So men just lose those opportunities. They blame women for being bitches when in reality, that's your opportunity for growth. Okay, maybe she is a bitch. How do you become a better man through internalizing the lesson of that relationship? How do you open that woman that feels closed? How do you become a better man? By understanding these things. So men are just really lost to how to do this thing. So not only is the masculine dysfunctional in men, most men, but then you also have women who haven't really had much of a relationship with healthy masculine, right? So it's this place where they're watching this thing out there not work, and they're trying to relate it to in here, but then they're also being told that being overly masculine is not sexy, right? So they deny this part of themselves, right? So it's a whole world of internal dysfunction due to external experience of what masculinity is. So if that weren't so dysfunctional, I could go to a woman and I could tell her what to do with her partner. Boom, we'd have a thing. But I've got to work through layers of conditioning of what is some information for what can part. My Google started was listening to me. Thought I was talking to her. So like I have to work through basically. I'd say here's probably the best thing, right? So the best ways, and this is how I work with my clients, to help people get down into how they can be both open-hearted and hold space. We've got two ends of this, right? In order to get through those, you have to really be able to hold a very firm presence, right? You've got to be really firm. You can only get into that firm presence if you've really gotten clear on where your mind is misinterpreting things. Your mind has limiting beliefs, is misperceiving, misinterpreting things, and your body is having emotional responses to experiences, external stimuli, whatever, that you don't have full control over. So your body is doing this thing. It's living you, and you're, instead of you living it, right? And your mind is doing the same. And it happens on both sides. It happens for men and it happens for women. When I work with people through the coaching that I do, I bring them down into having immense levels of stability within their core, so that whether a man or woman, they're able to more better hold space, if they're women, or better hold space for their partner, and be clear on how to, like, what their own masculine stillness is. And for the man, how to feel so that he can connect deeper with his partner. On both sides, we're processing out limiting beliefs and emotions so that we can really be rooted in ourselves. And it's from that place that we can access both sides, honestly.
So essentially, in order to go into, and this is my thinking, and I'm curious to see how, you may rearrange it, which I'm totally fine with. Is that we go through this integrative process where we integrate the other side of the pole, which is essential. And what I'm hearing from you is the level of integration needed there is way deeper than I thought. There's an extra layer. Like, it's not only do I have to do that inside of myself, if I want to have a relationship that expands open, we have to go through that integrative process in relationship. We have to do the other side, at least to some degree, in order to initiate into this. I just finished this little thought. And so so it's almost like we take on, as a man, identified as a more masculine man, I need to learn an integration of my inner feminine, but then also my feminine in relationship to a woman. And then from there, this kind of deeper possibility of polarity emerges, this actual kind of expanded or heightened sense of polarity, because we have a much broader field between us. Something like that is what I'm hearing, or what I'm imagining, or how I'm resolving what you're saying with my own inner framework.
So I'll do my best to respond. You tell me if I'm hitting mark, all right?
Yeah.
All right. So the deepest level that we're that we need to go, and where I take my clients, right, is embodiment. We are becoming the thing. We're not up here. We're not like learning the thing. We're not reading the book. We're not practicing in workshops. All of those things help us. All of those are really important pieces. But embodiment is where we become the thing that we were learning. We become the very existence, and we talk about, you talked about purpose being a verb. Purpose is embodiment, right? It's the same thing in relationship, right? So you are embodying the thing. But in all reality, the embodiment isn't something that you're taking on that's new. You're just uncovering it. Because you've been conditioned that it's not okay to be that thing. You've been conditioned that you're too much. You've been conditioned that your expression is not okay. You've been conditioned, I don't know, you name it, right? So all of these conditions are added layers of, you've got this, I wish that I had like an onion, because that's really one of the best ways to do it. You've got this core of a human being that is connected to source, connected to God, right? And then we have all these layers of conditioning that we've wrapped around it. Okay, we've got religion. Okay, we're supposed to do this with religion. Religion says we're supposed to do this. We're living in this culture, our family culture, and our bigger, greater culture say that we're supposed to live like this. Okay, we can't do these things. Law, right? School, right? Throw all these bigger pieces on there, and then like all of these things of who we're supposed to be until we don't even know who the hell we are anymore. But as children, we were balls of fucking light. We were balls of fucking light, Damien. We were abundant energy as boys and girls. We had no restrictions. We had no limitations until people put them on us. And then we started believing that's who we are. So in order to become fully embodied, well, yes, you have to be consciously aware of the things that are occurring between you and your partner and you and other people, and what is this immense sexual energy, and all of that's necessary. So we're becoming consciously aware of it. But you have to get beyond that to become the embodiment of the thing that you're learning. And you only get there by removing the layers to uncover your core essence. You know, let's say that Jing, right? That Jing is the core of who you are. Right? So that's your essence energy. When you are living from that place, you know, one of the beautiful things that I keep on bringing it back to David Data, because there's so many different ways that his work has influenced my work. You're living, allowing God to live you. Your limitations, that are the layers of conditioning, prevent you from letting God live you. When God is living you, you are embodiment. And you can find the right response in that moment that is needed. You're not coming up here to be like, wait, am I getting this right? Did I just like, did I touch your skin? No, you are responding with precision to the moment.
Yeah, I hear the strong need to get beyond the conceptualization, beyond the textbooks, you know, into this, beyond the practices even, you know, it's like they're only doorways. The information and the practice and everything, it's just, and then even the shadow work and the excavation and getting rid of all of it's all just so that we can live as that.
Bingo.
And
did that hit the mark, by the way? That was it.
Well, it's not fully the answer to the question that I was asking, or the response to the statement. However, in a way, it goes beyond it. And I hear like, this is where it gets tricky, and I'm fully on board with you, and I don't think you'll be in disagreement to me. It's like, we do need the information and the practices to get there, but the information and the practices are nonsense at the same time. It's like, right. It's this dichotomy. I have to understand these things, and I have to do the practice, but actually the understanding of the thing and the practice is the thing in the way of me having the thing, on being the thing. It's like, yeah. So I get it. You know,
you want me to respond to that? Like, I want to make sure that we're answering the previous question, because if you feel like there's something like still dangling over there, like I want to.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's more on the information side of thing, and more of the cues or the markers of, like, I guess what I was asking is, after we go through this reorientation process, this integrated process where I integrate my feminine both inside of myself, but then I also do the deeper kind of quite profound, you know, the lesson that I've got from this right now, the quite profound work of integrating my feminine in a relationship. Even for those moments, I get the sense that it's just moments of exploding into that and then coming back.
Right.
Now, does that lead to, and this is my personal hypothesis, but I'm not there, so I don't know. And I get a sense that you're further in that than I am. So I'm kind of asking you from that place. Does that then lead to a sense of, like, actually the relationship does become polarized in a sense, but it's an integrative polarity. It's a polarity that is fluid, but then as the masculine man, I do find myself in that kind of masculine essence more often. That's the dominant aspect of how I show up in the relationship, or is it something else?
Can I be honest with you about my experience of the question?
Yeah.
I think you're overthinking it.
Probably. I mean, yeah, sure.
But I don't want that to come across as though, you know, like I'm not being considerate of, like, that's an important piece. Like, not overthinking it is not getting into your body to become embodiment, right? So, but I think that the piece that I was missing when I responded to you earlier was you asked more about, like, okay, so it's through relationship that we become embodied, I think is really what you were getting at, right? Or that we go through this polarity experience that I described before. I would say It's a great question. I would say yes. But the caveat to that is that if you have a coach, like, and I'm not selling myself here, I actually received this experience from a coach. If you have a coach, it doesn't necessarily have to be in partnership. You can be guided through this. Like, I actually go through this process with men. Like, it's helping them access their heart to open and expand their heart in wherever they are. So it's in relationship, but it's in just as it would be like if a woman was holding the masculine for her partner to feel, right? What you're doing is you're holding a very intentional space for an individual to feel. I can do that as much with a man as I can with a woman, right? So it's just a very intentional holding of a space for an individual. You're removing all your judgmental limitations on who you think they're supposed to be. Your full intention is on them becoming masterfully themselves. And it's through that presence, removement of judgment, full intention on them becoming all of who they are, to hold the space for them to expand in their heart and whoever they need to be. And that is all your intention is. When you can hold that space, whether you're in partnership or you're in a coaching container or where else, you have the capacity to create the growth that they need to have to move into embodiment in partnership.
What I'm enjoying here is, like, I'm seeing kind of where things like start kind of reaching a point where it's like it all kind of blurs together. It's all kind of, for me anyway. So where I'm going with that is like the work that I do in the world is kind of teaching the ways of relating to do that with another. I'm most fascinated by this concept of essence, that each of us has a unique essence, a unique expression of being that is one of a kind in the entire history of the universe. And then how do I be with you in such a way that allows you to live, not even allows, it's not quite the right word, that supports or empowers, or there's no word that quite captures it, that how do I be with you in a way that you are able to be more of your essence with me? And so that's kind of what I hear you saying. And then the lens of male, female, masculine, feminine, conscious relationship, kind of how that all fits together. But it comes down to how do we actually just be who we're meant to be.
Right. Yeah. It's if you haven't, like the people who are most attractive to pretty much anybody, man or woman, are the people who are really just embodying their full expression, right?
Yeah.
It's the people who are singing their hearts out on stage to, across the globe, that once they hop on stage, they open the entire crowd, and the entire crowd is in bliss, and they don't have to be high on drugs. They're blissed out, right? It's that open, right, that creates the opening in others. And we find it in lots of different places. You look to a child and you look at that child in awe, and you're like, oh, this child is so beautiful and so full of life. That is the openness, right? So it's in the child, it's in the person that is open expression, that everybody's drawn to. It's in, a lot of men are drawn to, like, wow, that woman's really gorgeous, right? So we're drawn to her presence, just her very existence, and we're looking at her lipstick and how her lips just draw, like, God, I want those lips, right? And you're looking at the shape of her body through a dress, and a beautiful red dress that flows on her, and the just ever so subtle cleavage that she's in. We're just like, wow, like, oh my God, please, I want 5 of those, please, at least this one, right? So we're drawn to this radiance, but really what it comes down to is not the form itself, but the expression that is fully open in any one of those circumstances. child, artist on the stage, woman, open and full.
Man as well.
Man, yeah. Of course, like the people that came to mind when I was talking about the people on stage was Queen, Queen, Michael Jackson, Prince, like, in their prime, right, fully open.
And that's where I hear you say when you gave the response of like, I think you're overthinking it. It's like, it's because it's like, it doesn't matter once you kind of start getting to the point of essence. There's no, am I 60% masculine or like 70 or 80? Like it doesn't matter. It's not relevant anymore.
Nope.
It's actually not, it doesn't matter at all. Because I just I'm expressing as me, and that may be very masculine and dominant, or it may not be, but it doesn't actually matter that much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's relative to the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to be overly masculine to begin with, you're just going to pull and you need to be expressive. You're pulling yourself out of your core essence, expression, whatever that is in that moment.
Yeah. And then, like, I love this. It's like, I feel like we've gone into this space of essence and like this kind of true, and I say this, I don't know if I should use that word, true kind of transpersonal, trans identity, in a way transgender space where that's what the expression of essence is, where it doesn't matter. Like we're not limited by these aspects. And I think there's like, the reason why these dialogues are so big is there's a yearning to be in that space, a yearning to be beyond the constructs of my identity, beyond the constructs of definitions around man, woman, masculine, feminine. Yet my feeling is you can't actually get there through intellectualizing that or forcing that. You can only get there by learning to be embodied as self, to remove those layers and to be fully expressed as self. And then where we started is a quite distinct way of practicing as a man in a man's body that leads towards that. So we've got a man in a man's body practicing sexual transmutation because a man's body works in a particular way in relation to the way we develop semen and sperm and how that depletes our jing, that we have to do this process in order to initiate this process. And then we come into relationship, whether with a coach or with someone or with a woman or something, that allows us to open our heart, open into this more full territory of ourselves and become more embodied as ourselves. And so there is this distinct practice-based intellectual philosophical framework that scaffolds us and then becomes irrelevant. Yeah.
I would say though that it's that was my pathway, like going through the sex transmutation. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that I would say that that's the pathway. I would pathway. Just like, yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I don't know how other people have gotten there. But I do know, like, I would say for me, more than anything, it was it was my rootedness and my intention to master myself for a greater purpose, not just myself, but for people, for my partner, for having this, like, I remember, like this is probably going to sound ridiculous to anybody watching this, but like, when I was 3 years old, like, I can remember having this girlfriend at 3 years old, and I've said this in different ways on other interviews. Like, when I was 3 years old, I was so into my girlfriend at the time. I was freaking heartbroken by the fact that we had to leave that place and go move somewhere else. And it had a very, very deep impact on me. Every girlfriend I had, when I was like, before I even knew what really a girlfriend was, I had this tremendous draw to this connection of energy that existed. And I didn't know why. So I've spent all this time exploring, like, how do I expand that? How do I become the person that helps other people become more themselves? How do I harness the thing that is my own existence in this freaking massive sexual energy? Like, so it was just like this whole intention. It was a very, very intentional mission to be like, how do I open myself? Sex transmutation, I will tell you, helps you get there. But as far as if it's the only way, I don't think so. But.
I love that. I love the humility in what you just shared, and the kind of like, like, here's my work, here's something that I teach, and it doesn't matter. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm just enjoying. I'm like, where do I go? And my mind's just kind of like, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah. It's and I feel it, and I feel that call too. That sense of just like, how do I be in such a way that helps other people be, themselves. Like, that's just the world that I crave to live in. That we're just all the beautiful beings that we are. Then what would existence be like?
Yeah.
That's what drives me. Especially in those days when I can't get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Well, super great topics. I'm really glad that you asked them. We took quite a bit of a exploration on this call. I think we went more deep on this call than I've gone on any interview that I've had. So a lot of really great content that a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of. So thanks for asking all the right questions.
Yeah. And I feel like I have this sense of like, we could keep going, but it's like, it actually feels really complete. Like, it feels like it does, doesn't it? It's like, okay, like, I feel grounded in my body. I feel like satisfied. Like I just had a really good meal. I feel appreciated. I feel like I've got a lot of new things to explore in my mind, and like, I feel more expanded.
Yeah. Agreed. It's great. Great space we got, and a lot of really beautiful content we covered. So
yeah. Thanks so much.
I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, maybe just to wrap up, we'll do the very cliche thing of like, how do people find out more about you, get in contact with you? What do you want people to know about that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Thanks. So primarily through email, social media, and my website, joekeich.com, joekeich.com, Joe Keich Coaching at Gmail. I always get stuck on the spelling of this because it's too long. JOEKEICH coaching, COACHING at gmail.com. And then, of course, Joseph Keich on Facebook. Any one of those forms you can reach out to me. And I always love interacting with people and exploring how to help them to do their own discovery and intimacy in relationship. Love it.
Nice. Any last words you'd like to?
No, brother. But really genuinely appreciate you reaching out and really exploring this territory. I always love talking about it. So that's it. Glad we had the chance to connect.
Me too. Thanks heaps.
All right, brother.